All right, if we could begin, we'd like to move on to our first keynote address. I'd like to introduce this morning's keynote speaker, Mr. Marc Castellnou, Chief of Forest Fire Area, Catalan Fire and Rescue Service. Marc is an expert fire analyst in planning and a strategic and operational incident commander. He has introduced fire ecology into decision-making on wildfires in Spain, a very significant step. He has also introduced an operational prescribed fire burning program, fire analysis as a tool linking prevention and suppression, has promoted a lessons learned based concept in the fire service, and is a leader in the fire service. He is the president of the Pau Costa Foundation, and he is also the 2015 recipient of the International Association of Wildland Fires Wildland Fire Safety Award. Mr. Marc Castellnou.
Well, good morning and thank you for being here. I am talking today as a firefighter from Catalonian Fire Service, but also I'd like to thank the president of Pau Costa Foundation to be here, all of you, and why we are here. Just to learn a little bit more, just to go a step ahead, discussing about safety. Safety is something, it's not a science, a lot of times it's a kind of art, and that's what we are doing here today, just trying to discuss that. Today is also a special day because you know that the GRAF teams in Catalonia, they started 18 years ago, but all the trip, all the adventure, and all the things we've done possible, our generation, my generation, the generation I represent today, started exactly one day like today at the end of January 20 years ago. It was the first day I was given the chance to go to be part of an analysis team in the United States 20 years ago. So today is also kind of an anniversary for all of us. So 20 years later, we are back here to discuss about decision-making, how we think on safety in our decision-making on a wildfire situation. And this is not an easy task to discuss because it means a lot of us have to recognize we don't do the things the best way we can. And that's the important issue. And that's what we need to think about. 2 years ago, I was given the safety award. I said that day that that award was not for me, was not for my fire service, was for the whole Iberian Peninsula wildfire community. We are a community fighting fires in the border of the climate change. Sahara is there, and the green forests are in northern part, and we lay in the middle. We as a generation, and we geographically, we are there in the border with the most difficult conditions, and that's why we confront really complicated conditions. Recently, we have had some entrapments in Castilla-La Mancha. We are doing really open analysis of this. We are doing really opening thinking about it, and that says we are a healthy, at least a healthy generation, and we are learning to do that. But the most important issue, and that's why I'm going to talk today, I know the important conferences are after my talk. I am getting older, so I do the introduction. I am not just giving important speeches anymore. But I wanna, because I'm using my experience, I am using that level that provides when you are an old in the middle of a community. I wanna touch you in how we have to change our organizations. Let's be clear. Our organizations are not to say old. I must say that. They are far away from the challenge the times are presenting in front of us. And that's key issue. Let's go for matter. I am using some of what I presented 2 years ago, but we all use laces as a safety protocol. But be realistic. It's a protocol. We take our decisions. We think what we want to do with the fire. We send our crews out there. We ask them to do the job. And we say them, be safe, use the protocol. That's a joke. in the 21st century. That's not the way it should be. We should not be sending them to dangerous operations. So protocol for safety issue is not the level of issue we should be using. We should be thinking safely before planning what we have to do in our operations. So the problem is that accident happens when reality changes. And reality, when it changes, changes fast. And when it changes fast, doesn't give you time to adapt to the changes. And that's a problem. All the protocols work if the scenario keeps being the same. When the scenario changes, the protocol that you were implementing to prevent an accident in a scenario you were thinking was permanent is not working anymore. The controls fail. And when controls fail, then uncertainty arises. And when uncertainty arises, we are all human. And we feel fear. And when we feel fear, we don't think clearly. And we get defensive. And when we get defensive, our situational awareness, which is the most important part of LACES, collapses. And we've seen that accident by accident and accident and situation. And then we go there, we look at what mistakes our firefighters have done. And we put the finger in their eye and say, you did that wrong. And then we go home. We say, well, I've done the report. I know what I have to learn. They failed. I'm safe. That's not fair anymore. That cannot be the way we will look our community. And the most important thing is that deep in the roots of our organization, it lays the main problem. And that's graphic is a problem. Normally, because we have fear. Every time we have a big fire, the next fire, we respond overwhelming the fire. Why? Because we don't want to see another big fire coming. And at the end, from the beginning of our fire service, we start to use 1-2 crews per hectare. Now, at initial attack, we're using almost 6-7 crews. That's overwhelming. And why it happens? Because we have fear of seeing another big wildfire happening. And the way we respond as human, as society, is just trying to do our efforts to make sure this situation doesn't happen. And that's fair. We'll do that. I am part of it. I've been one of the guys in charge of designing that way of working. I don't want to blame anybody. I'm blaming myself. We must be critical today here. We must open our minds. Doing so, being so efficient fighting fire, we are providing an environment for our firefighters that is controlled, that is almost boring, doesn't offer any challenge. 98% of the wildfires we solve them at the initial attack with no more problems than that. So we don't learn a lot of awareness there. Everything works fine, resources are there, situation is stable, nothing happened. I use LACES, I have the lookout, he looks for my back, I look for the fire, this works. But then suddenly 2,000% of the fires, they get overwhelming, fast, pretty intense. We are not used to them, and they make our situational awareness collapse. Because we are not training for those fires. 98% of our time, we work in fires that they are easy to solve. But accidents happen in those 2% of the fires that escape our capacity of control. And that overwhelms us. And that situational awareness collapse. And the way we apply safety must be designed for this 2%, not for that 98%. And that's the issue. And that's what we learned. So awareness, just to avoid that, is a big depository of information. We put there all the information, all what we learn, all the data. We have simulators, we have drones flying over the fire. We have a lot of things providing information, and that needs to be taken into account because that's awareness. Just be aware of everything what is going there, but we call that infotoxicity. It means we are not able to get all the information and see which one is important or not. An accident happens when things change more rapid than the decision making we apply. It means when we are slower deciding than reality changing, then we get out of touch with reality. That decision lag. You are falling behind the events. So you respond with a way of thinking that is not the way of thinking of the real situation we are looking at. And that's the main problem. And how we respond? More pressure into our crews. You have to be aware of that. You have to be better trained. Come on. I see a lot of common people around here. And I must say that we are the ones that need to learn a lesson. It's not our firefighters that needs to be aware. They are. We need to be aware. And we are still not enough. That's my conclusion. So to avoid awareness, we need to work at the level of operation, to avoid awareness collapse, sorry. We need to work at the level of operation. LACES, that's our operational scenario. We apply LACES when we apply tools, when we work in the fire, and that works. And we need to keep doing that. Then it comes the tactical level, where we select the operational window of opportunity, where we decide when and where we will work. And that's the geographical and temporal scenario. And still LACES work there. But then it comes the strategic scenario. It's the targeted scenario, and that's where we almost fail. We all say tactic, we confuse tactic with the strategy, and a lot of time we confuse operations with the strategy. We don't clarify that, and that's why it happens, because we work overwhelming the fire with resources that the needs, the logistics of the amount of resources we send to our fires, they demand a lot of work and a lot of effort to coordinate them, and then demand a lot of work and a lot of effort to know where they are, what they are doing, that we all end up working in operations. A few of us working when and where we should be working, and none of us is working in the scenario and how the scenario can change. What the certainty that the scenario we are thinking about keeps staying stable, or what's the chances of our scenario will change and create a different scenario where our tactical thinking will not work, either will work our operational thinking. And that's why we, commanders, we, fire service, some of the fire service use it to work in the fastest fires in the world, in our urban interface, where we have fires that burn 20,000 hectares in one afternoon. We cannot rely safety anymore in saying, you crews apply LACES. We have to provide. How we want to solve this fire? The idea of the resolution is a strategic idea. A strategy is not anymore how I work in a fire. No, that's tactical operation. We have to think what will be the outcome. We, at the strategic level, have to reduce the uncertainty. So we have to choose the way to solve the scenario that will provide less uncertainty. And if it's not uncertain, it means we know what will happen, how situations will move, and how meteorology will affect that fire, then tactical thinking and operational LACES safety will work. Safety protocols work when situation doesn't change. When situations start to change too fast, you need to readapt. And normally you fall into decision lag. And to avoid that, you need to define the stability of the situation from the beginning and choose that. And that's our responsibility. And that's what needs to be learned. We cannot excuse anymore in protocols. We have to start thinking from the beginning in safety. It needs to be part of our culture. It needs to be part of the way we think. And it is still not. So the ideas that we take from our experience, I mean, safety can no longer be a protocol. Needs to be the basic of the way we think. Tactics are safe if operations can be done properly, and LACES help to do it. We all will apply. I am not criticizing LACES. I'm not doing that. It's one of the best tools ever designed for a firefighter to be used by the firefighters. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that situational awareness is critical in all this process, and we cannot fall behind of it. We cannot collapse. So, response to that is try to be precise, try to be in control of everything. And when we try to be in control of everything, then we have uncertainty because we cannot control everything. So that's where we have the problem. So we need to evolve the way we think in managing risk the same way a bigger organization in other fields of expertise they think. They go from transactional to strategic way of thinking. We must do the same. Risk is not something bad we have to transfer to somebody, safety officer. Somebody is looking for me, my safety. Risk is nothing that it's an expense we need to manage. Risk is uncertainty, and we need to avoid it. And that's the important thing. So we need to change the culture where we work. It means initially life is our strategic objective or goal we need to avoid, not losing lives, then not losing properties, then not losing forests. But that's a way of operational thinking that was conditioning all of our decision-making at the level of strategy and tactics. What we propose is strategically, we need to think fire service can collapse. If fire service is working safe, the scenario is safe, then they can provide solutions for the emergencies. Tactics is the way to protect the social values, the common goods. And then at the operational level, we'll go for life, property, and forest. I am not saying that life of a person is not a strategic value. I am saying that we do operations to protect them. But tactically, we try to work on the fire where we can protect the values we protect as a society, as a fire service, but especially we start or prioritize the bigger the value at the beginning. But the initial value we cannot forget is that if we as a fire service collapse, we cannot protect anything, anybody, any property, any forest. So strategically, that's the way of thinking. And I know that proposal is going against all books written about firefighting or fire decision-making or strategic thinking while fire. I know that. But the only way we see we can improve in our safety is to be in advance of those situations we don't expect. Delete uncertainty from our scenario, and that's it at the strategic level. We cannot ask our firefighters to think strategically. They only think operational, and that's what they need to do because they are doing the operation. And our middle-level commanders, they need to look at the tactical level, but we cannot say what the firefighters, just put the fire out and then criticize them if they don't do things right. So that's how we organize strategically, but I will go to an example to show what I'm trying to say. It's a lot better because in the end, we are firefighters. Or the people I am talking the most are firefighters. That small fire is a lining fire. That's in Falset area, Priorat area. If you ever go there, it's the best wine area in the world, believe me. I come from there, just go there, spend a lot of money, white wine. So, that fire from the beginning was not an easy fire. It's lining fire, you see the column, we were getting there. What was the problem? The firefighters getting there, they were saying it's a small fire, it's a lining fire. I can see in the rows some of the first guys to arrive there. It's burning intensely, but it's a small fire. It was a normal day, sea breeze day, easy day. So it was nothing to be aware of. But it was a red light there. It was a storm day. Storms were around. And we all know that storms, they move wind erratically. So, by definition, this is an uncertain scenario. There's no way we can know for sure what fire will do until the storm is far away from here. Because meanwhile, the storm will be around, will be shifting fire, now left, now right, now up, now down. So it was an uncertain scenario. So the guys arrive there, they get out of the helicopter, they wait for the initial ground resources, and they start to fight a fire, and they had a lookout, apply lasers there, everything was safe. And the easy part of this, the ones that know me, you know that was coming. I cannot do a presentation if I'm not doing drawings in the square. So that the fire, topographically, he wants to go uphill, the wind is pushing that direction. So since we have a ridge there, and the wind is pushing there, that ridge would hold. So strategically or tactically, we go and we put the fire out using the left flank, which is the easy part. And that was all protocol say. They go from the bottom to the top. The fire is going up the hill. is not going to cross the ridge, and it's not difficult at all. But it's an uncertain scenario. What if the storm pushes or calls the fire in this direction? I'm doing a little bit of analysis here, but what if the storm calls the fire, you don't see that, in that direction? Well, for sure, once the fire will get in the ridge, he will start to go down the hill, will calm down. What if the storm pushes the fire in the direction the sea breeze also pushes? Well, it will start to get pretty intense and probably spotting, and then the lookout will call everybody to get out of there, and they will have to run to the safe area, which is that bin area there, or below the forest road, or that bin area there. But will be enough time to be there? All these slices, operational safety, protocol applied, thinking. Really, do we need to do that? It's not easy to say, okay, until the storm doesn't get out of there, just take the right flank. Let's take all these as a burn and try to contain the fire between both ridges and not crossing below the forest road. And that's it. That's a stable, safe, and certain scenario. The other one was safe because we apply a protocol, but has chances to fail because chances of the fire overrunning our line was there, but we had lasers and we had the safety area. Strategically, what's the outcome of this fire? What we propose is at first just delete uncertainty. And delete uncertainty means choose the actions that can provide you safety in the operations, and the outcome of the fire you are fixing is the outcome of the fire you will be getting. And that's what that day we did. Of course, we ran some simulations. Some of the simulations were saying that's nothing, but some of the simulations, when you apply some uncertainty, said that's a lot. That's thinking. And that's the way we start to work. We put people in the safe area. We put all the droppings, as you see from our GIS position of people, and the GIS of the droppings. We fix the road, and we fix the right flank, nothing in the left. Why? Because we said, leave the left, take the right, just get 20 hectares burned, but let's work in a safe scenario, will not change. We cannot think with the uncertainty of the storm. So the best way to absorb uncertainty is to absorb this directly in the planning, in the decision making, at the higher level, not to leave that at the lower level, at the protocol level. And that applies in the small fires and applies in big fires. So that's the stormy day. You see the smoke column really black, moving. That's the way, the moment it changes, the pictures are taken from the lookout in the safe area. That's the type of behavior. That was a pretty fast-moving fire, and that's the end of the fire. That's the ridge where we work, and that was it. Easy. What was the main problem of uncertainty taking that fire? If the fire was moving there, that was it. If the fire starts to move to that direction, when the wind of the storm came, the fire could have gone the other side and become bigger. So getting a strategy to minimize uncertainty, keeping the fire doing what he can do, and avoiding the fire to do what he could do, but we can easily prevent, and not trying to do easy things that can really get worse, that's increasing safety. But that's a safety thinking from decision-making and the strategic and tactical level, and not relying on the operational level. And that means we have to be thinking and avoiding those conditions. So we propose to be able to focus on reducing uncertainty, and this is forcing us to move from tactical decisions to strategic planning. I know that's not very well understood, because we are operational. We take decisions. We command operation. But that's not a way of command. That's a way of absorbing uncertainty inside our decisions and leaving protocols to be working in scenarios where we know they will work, not trying to make work safety in scenarios where uncertainty can create situations of changes that can make the decision-making of people on the ground fall behind the rim of events, so how fast the situation is changing. So we need to have scenarios that are stable, that means that they are certain, and we reduce that uncertainty just prefixing the outcome of the fire and absorbing the uncertainty into the outcome, not trying to do what we can. Just do what we know we will be doing. This is, and that was said a long time ago, I learned that in California a long time ago, firefighting is not a sport. The important thing is not to be there. The only important thing in front of a fire is to win. So we don't apply the way we apply in sports. Another fire last summer, Puebla Montornes. It was a 500 hectares fire. Simulation, you see the potential of the fire and the spread of the fire. That's the fire behavior from initial clears. It was pretty intense spotting long distance fire. And it was really a fast growing fire in an urban interface area. So that's all our tactical analysis. It means that that's all the different portions of land that can burn that afternoon in that fire. And that's all the connections. So strategical thinking means that we define, strategic is not, what we will do to that fire? Well, we will put 10 helicopters, 20 engines, then we will do backfire in the ground. No, that's operational thinking. Then we will wait the fire here in that gap in the forest, and we will use the urban interface just to, well, that's tactical. Those are options, where and when we work, applying the toolbox we have. But strategically, what's the outcome of this fire? Oh, the minimum size. Well, if we try to do the fire the minimum size, we don't know the size, then we will try to put the fire out, and we will be reacting at the event, and if the fire speeds up, then we will fall behind, and we will lose control. And that's what happened. Fires get big because we will lose control situation. So strategic thinking is not to put fires out. It's just to think, knowing very well what your people can do, how we will solve that fire for sure, and not tell the people, we are doing what we can. Then if 10,000 hectares burn, then you cannot do a lot, and everybody blames on you. If you say, well, 10,000 will burn, but no more than that, and because we will do that, and we'll put it out here and there, and that's what happened, then you are a professional. At the end, it's the same outcome. It's the way you think. The last 40 years, the resolution of the fire has been at the equilibrium level of what the fire can do and how lucky we've been. In the next 20 years, we hope to make sure that the wildfire outcome will be the equilibrium between what the fire can do and what we can do. But thinking in advance, positioning very well our resources to ask them to do what they really can do safely. Not to ask them to do things that we don't know if they will be able to do. So when we try to put a fire out, we are opening the window for unsafe situations. When we work to put the fire out, knowing exactly what we do, where and when, for what, then we are doing that safely. That's what we need to think strategically, because strategically, and not the way military people think, strategically in the way I explain you. Reducing uncertainty. What's the worst uncertainty of that fire? Just if the fire crosses that gap over there, now he is in a small ridge, but either he gets there or either he gets there, he will go in a valley. And it's a sea breeze. In the valley, the fire will get bigger and bigger. And that's a historical fire there in 93 was almost 4,000 hectares and killed 5 people. So our strategic thinking is how we can make sure fire doesn't go that. So strategically, what we think is let's use those containment axes. So fix that there, and on the head of the fire. That's strategic thinking. So what's the outcome? I will work so the fire will burn these polygons in there. So that means the fire will burn 1, 4, 5, half of 3, and 2. That's the outcome. And I'm starting to work in flanking, and I will be working the head, and I will be using that gap. Well, That's a picture of the fire. Right flank looks as planet. Left flank doesn't look as planet. What happened? Well, this guy is doing something that was not expected at the head of the fire, and this is providing not a safe situation for the units working at the gap. They can have lasers, they can look at what's happening there, they have the safe area, they can take their own decisions, but it's not in their hands to be avoiding that. So that's a tactical level, that's the way of thinking in the position of the fire, all the works that we were doing there according to the planning to fix the axis, but the fire broke that axis and created something there. And if we go to our map, tactical map, if the fire broke and go there, he will be sending head runs to that flank. So situation is not changing. It doesn't only change the tactical priorities just to keep the certainty of the scenario back into place. And that's what we've done. We look at the work of all the aerial resources was placed there, and then we saw that we start to place there, we put the resources there to put that out before doing the other things. So at strategical level, we have a strategy, the outcome of the fire. We work for that outcome of the fire. We don't work anymore to put the fire out as soon as possible. We work to put the fire out in the way and in the outcome we imagine will be the equilibrium between us and the fire potential of that day. And that provides safety reactioning from the strategic level and tactical level, and not leaving everything to be done at the firefighter level. So I know this is not a proper talk. I know this has been not very well organized. But we need to discuss a lot. There is a lot of potential in changing our mindset. We cannot try to fight against fire. We have to manage fire, and we have to manage fire using safety as the basic condition or precondition in our decision making. So that's the outcome of that fire that day, the initial outcome and the final outcome with that change and how the axis of the scenario changed. It was not a change like in the prior small fire of uncertainty. The fire keeps certain, but we were able to see the problems as soon as they were moving out at the tactical level and move strategical decisions to make sure safety was not leave as a thing to be used in a protocol for our crews down there. So just to end and to finish my talk and open the speech to the important people today, the ones that really will explain important things to think. We have been thinking operationally, trying to put as many information as possible in the head of our firefighter, just to define very well where the pool ball is. And the better we see the ball, the better we understand the situation. But this tells very well what's happening now, but not where that ball is going. Then on the other side, you have the strategic way of thinking. I don't see very well the ball, but I know where it's going. So strategically, that's what we need to know, where things are going, what's going to happen, and avoid those conditions I don't want to see happening, and not put my people in places I don't know how certain or uncertain situation will be. Once I've done that decision and I know what will happen next, then I can put my people to try to define very well the situation. So for me, the next step is just to rethink the way we talk about the strategy. Strategy is uncertainty management. It is reducing uncertainty to provide certain scenarios where everything we know and we've been applying the last 4 years will work for sure. And that's the challenge. And everybody in the world is trying to work in front of uncertainty. We as firefighters, we know a lot of it. So let's apply it. Let's break the old way of thinking, the last 40 years of thinking operational. Operation is what we do. We think tactically, when and where we work, but especially we think strategically. What this fire will be, this, and then let's work to make sure the fire is this. Just stop dreaming. Every time somebody calls us, something is burning. So our goal is not to put it out. Our goal is to safely protect our values, our society. So let's start thinking strategically. Thank you for being here, and thanks for listening.
Would you like to entertain a few questions?
Yeah.
All right, we have a few minutes, and Mark will be willing to entertain a few questions. So if we have any questions from the audience, please stand up and raise your hand, and we'll try to respond to that. Any questions? Looks like no questions. Mark, you've done an excellent job. They understood everything. Thank you very much.
Well, I do it not in English. Probably that's the reason.
I'll- Before we go, you've probably seen some activities going on your screens up here. I'd like to introduce Maria Calvet. She's a graphic recorder who will be making caricatures during each of the keynote addresses and present those to the speakers at a later time. Thank you very much.